Hi Year 6, good morning and welcome to Maths today. This is another revision unit, but as I think I said yesterday, it might be that in Year 5 you didn't cover this learning, and although we have touched upon a lot of this in our arithmetic during the first couple of terms of Year 6, it may take a bit of thinking through, because it might be relatively new or something that you haven't really developed since maybe Year 4. Anyway, if you set yourself up in your book, and the learning objective is understand thousandths. So we'll get ready and do a review. So essentially 3 questions here. Have a read through, have a think, and if you can solve them, and any reasoning or explanation. Pause the video, off you go. Okay, let's have a little think before we move on. So we've got a place value grid here. Tens, ones, there's the decimal point there. And then to the right, we've got the tenths and the hundredths. What number is represented in the place value chart? We've got 3 ones, we've got 1/10 and 3 hundredths. And then we can see that represented as there are the 3 ones and the 1/10 and the 3 hundredths. If we add 6/10 to the place value chart, what's the new number? You could have popped those in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the ones hasn't changed. Now here we have the original 1 that was there, plus the 6 we've just added in, which is 7, and this hasn't changed. Now we can see that represented as 3 ones, the 7/10, and the 3 hundredths. To complete these statements, 3 ones, how many tenths, how many hundredths, and we're sort of closing it down a little bit. 3 plus that, and 4 plus what? The 4, the 0.6 and the 0.04. What did you do for the last one? Now, somebody said to me today that one of the things that they miss about being in class is Johnny's contribution in maths. So I reckon I can probably hear him sharing his answer all the way from here. So thank you, Johnny, and how nice of someone in the class to miss a part of your personality that we really appreciate in class. So let's have a look. 0.05. So that represents 5 hundredths. So we have the 0 here to represent the no tenths. Okay, let's move on. So in the top grid, we have it divided into 10 equal parts. Each part represents 1 out of the 10. So in terms of a fraction, 1/10. it takes 10 tenths to make a whole. And the decimal representation of a tenth is 0.1. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if we were to populate this, it would be the same as the one above. So what else do we need to do to that grid? There we go. So this down here does represent a tenth, and now the tenths has been subdivided into, and it's a square, so it should be 10. But we can double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now each one is divided into 1/100th. And one way of appreciating that is that if this is 10, and the other side, of course, is 10, because that's the property of the square, and 10 times 10 is 100. So there are 100 squares there. I'll leave you to count that if you want to. Okay, so now we're further dividing this down. Just going to get rid of this for us. It's kind of in the way, and this and this. Okay, so now we've got something that represents, well, let's have a look. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we have 10, but we've got 10 inside that 1. So if that was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Do you think? Do you agree? That looks like that's 100. Now, if that's 100 and that's 100, because we know that it's 100 because it's a square, and 100 times 100. So I think I can see Will. He's keen. No sombrero today. What's 100 times 100? Just doing the drawing on. I know some people appreciate it makes them laugh as I draw my digits. So we've got 1,000. So 100 times 100 is 1,000. So hopefully we can appreciate that we've got 1,000 of these. Now I'd definitely leave you to count those if you so wish. So there's a whole, the 10th, there's 100th, that's the 1,000th. So we've got 2 wholes. We have 6 tenths, and here we've got the 100th, so 9 there, and the 1,000ths. Yeah. So what's happened here? Just pick up something that shows up a bit more. What's happened here is when you combine these numbers, there's the whole. There's to the right of the decimal place is the tenths. There's the 9. So in the second place to the right of the decimal point, and lastly the 3 hundredths. So you might want to pause and have a look through that diagram and have a think. One, 3, and 6. So 6 thousandths. So if you look at the key up here, we don't have anything representing the hundredths. So how do we write that? Just before the checkpoint, going to just pop back to that, because I think it might just be worth picking that out a bit in a bit more detail. So we've got the 1. Now here, this represents the tenths, so that's absolutely right. This position is the hundredths, and you know I said we don't have any of those. So really we need good old Zero the hero. Haven't seen him for a while. He flies in, keeps that place value, which represents the tenths. So checkpoint. 1/1000th is that the decimal representation. So work it out and do your reasoning. So it's false. Let's just go back. So what does this represent? No hole there. This is a tenth, yeah, and this is a hundredth. But actually we're not looking at 1/100th, we're looking at 1/1000th. So, and that is the third place value to the right of the decimal point. So there we go. So as this is essentially a revision unit, although for all the sorts of reasons I explained, maybe you haven't done all of this before, it would be really good if you were feeling confident. Do inspect step 1, questions 1 and 2, and just double check that that you can do those. So it could be that everyone is starting on step 1. Okay. So moving on, what fraction of the square has been shaded? And then write the fraction as a decimal. So we had 100 here, 100 here, and then hopefully we should have the 86. 80 and 6. Yeah. So what does that look like as a decimal? These numbers need to move. So if you imagine there's an imaginary decimal point there, and we need the numbers to move place value wise 3 positions that way. So we end up with all of those 3 numbers to the right of the decimal point, and we end up with the 2/10ths, the 8 hundredths, well done, and the excellent 6 thousandths. So have a think about this one. Just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100, 10, 20, 30, 136. So there we go. And then just remembering that if you have that imaginary decimal point, because we don't need the decimal point for a whole number, but then if we move that 3 places that way, this is what we end up with. No holes, 5/10ths, 3 hundredths, and the 6 thousandths. (300,000ths) is a larger or greater number than 0.3 because 300 is greater than 3. So let's work through this one. So in this particular drawing, if you remember back a little bit, we said that a whole one of those would be equivalent to a tenth because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 strips. So have a go at the rest of the questions and then use the marking scheme to self-assess and make yourself a learning comment. I hope you do really well today. Any questions, do let me know. And I'm going to send a message out on Dojo because I'm really keen for us to spend some time together. And I thought if we could review the video of Alma, which is our English lesson, and then have a think about story mapping. It gives us a chance to do some work together. So until then, enjoy the maths and take care.